Hey guys, this is Lala Legacy and welcome back to another episode of SeaBed. So let's jump right back in. After packing my bags, I made it down to the lobby. Nanai promised she'd meet me with her car, but I arrived a bit earlier than the agreed upon time. I placed my bags under the counter and lingered in the lobby for a while. I was thinking about sitting down on the stool when the black phone entered my vision. It didn't seem like it would be ringing any. Let me try that sentence again. It didn't seem like it would be ringing again anytime soon. Is something wrong? Did my phone offend you in some way? Nanai appeared in the doorway behind the counter. Checking the clock, I realized it was about time for my departure. No, it's nothing. I see. Well, let's be on our way, I guess. Right. How do you like it here? Or how did you like it here? Nanai asked as we rattled down the same road I ascended on my first day here. I had a great time. It's been so long since I felt so relaxed. I'm almost looking forward to going back to work the day after tomorrow. Glad to hear it. The car rattled as it passed over a big hole on the road, making Nanai grow silent. I caught a glimpse of the sea beyond the trees around us. Feel free to drop by for another visit if you're ever in the mood. Oh, definitely. Nanai told me she still had some unfinished work to attend to as we parted ways at the station. After waiting a minute or so for me to go inside, she drove away. I found a small shop inside the station. I wonder what kind of shop this is. I briefly inspected its lineup. It had some snacks, newspapers, and a souvenir corner. Key holders, wood carvings, and glass sculptures lined a long shelf. I found a familiar writing utensil among the lineup, clips with cute bears on them. I felt like I had too few to put them to any real use, so I considered buying a bit more here. But as I wondered if it was really necessary, I grew worried about the time. I checked the clock inside the station and realized it was about time for my train. In the end, I bought 2 packs of clippings, thinking I might as well give the extra ones to my workmates as presents. Then I bought a few more things I thought they might like. I bought the ticket at the booth Nanai told me about, and as soon as I stepped onto the platform, the train arrived. Great timing! Oh, that's so pretty! The train car rocked back and forth. I let out a sigh, then inhaled a breath, realizing that the air here smelled a lot like the way it does back home in the countryside. A complex mix of steel, trees, the sea, old buildings, and incense. The scent waned with each station we passed. Instead, the towns began to grow bigger and bigger. After the next station, we emerged next to a highway along the sea. I watched the sun along the sea, illuminating the car in its orange glow. It sank deeper and deeper into the western horizon. I closed my eyes, turning my face to the center of the light. I imagined a world where the sun rose from the west. Sachiko was sleeping there on the other side. The faint sun rays would soon fall on her closed eyelids, gently waking her. She would then do her usual routine of radio exercises and head to work. That silly train of thought was enough to make me feel like I would be okay. Opening my eyes, I saw the entire train painted with orange. It felt almost like I was in a pleasantly warm bath. I truly managed to put my vacation time to good use this time. The hallucinations and earring that had been plaguing me for quite a while seemed to have completely disappeared over the past few days. I felt like I could return to work in top shape, but I also wasn't planning to take on as much as I used to near the end of the year. I shoved my right hand into the pocket of my jacket to confirm my ticket when my fingers touched something cold and hard inside. I took it out and realized that it was the penguin toy Kozue gave me as a present. It shone dully in the orange light, its silly face looking somewhat sad. I felt a tear roll down my cheek. Wondering if a stray sun ray reflected on some nearby surface had hurt my eye, I slightly rubbed it. When I did, another tear spilled forth from it. I paused for a moment, unable to understand what was causing this. No other tears followed, with the second one remaining moist on my cheek. The exact same scenery I'd observed on my way here drifted along the other end of the window. But I felt like I myself was now somehow different. Something didn't add up. It was like I left behind something in that mansion. I could recall someone telling me I had nothing to worry about anymore, but I couldn't remember who it was or when it happened. And I had a feeling I'd never be able to. I touched the trail left by the teardrop on my cheek, feeling pain in my heart every time the train car swayed. It was like something important was being peeled away from it, little by little. However, I had no way of escaping the moving train. All I could do was sit here, waiting for it to reach its final destination. I felt like I heard a faint voice in the corner of my mind, but I couldn't make it out. A deep darkness enveloped everything. Just that imagery that this game put into my head of the sun, like, setting in the west. Or whatever, I don't know. Okay, achievement unlocked, return, chapter 10, distant sound. But just that imagery of, like, the sun going down, like you're watching the sun going down, and you imagine that somewhere on the other side, there is your loved one who is passed, who's, like, going to have the sun rise for them, and just waking them at the same time that you're looking at the sun going down. That just hit me so hard. Oh gosh, okay. I returned to the night duty room after my conversation with Nagasaki. I picked up our teacups and pot from the table and carried them to the kitchen. I spilled what little tea was left on the bottom of the pot into the sink, then realized I was out of boiled water to make more. I pulled a kettle off one of the shelves, filled it with water, and put it on the stove. I mulled over my conversation with Nagasaki while waiting for the water to boil. The conversation hardly took an hour, but I learned a lot. My head was still spinning, having received all this information about diaries and illnesses and whatnot. Now that I thought about it, I should have used that chance to ask Nagasaki more questions. For example, she said she had met me before in the past. I forgot to even ask when that happened. Besides, while Nagasaki seemed amiable and answered more or less everything I asked, I felt there was still something off about how she phrased certain things. I wondered if she really didn't know Sachiko like she tried to imply. She didn't seem at all surprised or even curious when I told her Sachiko was the most important person in my life, although almost as though she knew about our relationship. The hiss of the kettle brought me back to reality. I poured the boiling water into the pot, and filled with old tea leaves. Sorry. I lifted my teacup with the freshly made tea and took a sip, feeling my head clear up. I grabbed one of the monaka that Nagasaki brought me and returned to the living room, sitting down on the cushion by the table. A bunch of keys Nagasaki handed me lay in the middle of the table. They were all connected by a silver ring. One of the keys had a small green hexagonal key holders attached to them. Being all the same, they reminded me of the keys used in hotels. They were different from the key holders Mayuko used. I picked one key holder up to realize it was a bit heavier than I had thought. It sparkled slightly, reflecting the light as I turned it in my palm. I suddenly spotted a number on it. Upon turning it a bit more in the light, I could make out a room number. I tried checking which room keys I had and eventually found one to Kozue's old room. I placed the keys back on the table. I remembered how I saw Sachiko in that room. I tried to get back to that room multiple times, but it was always locked. I didn't realize it until now, but the tea I drank seemed more bitter than usual. I now had the chance to check that room before returning the keys to Mayuko. For some reason, I felt like it wasn't complete coincidence that they ended up in my possession. I tried coming up with an explanation but ultimately failed. I wondered whether I should go to that room right now, or instead tell Nagasaki about what I'd experienced there. However, I couldn't figure out exactly what I was supposed to ask her. I was the only one who knew what happened there. Nagasaki might have understood something I didn't, had I told her everything. On the other hand, she might have just deemed me crazy and locked me up or something. Besides, based on our previous conversation, it was already evident that she was trying to avoid discussing Sachiko with me. There were no guarantees she'd tell me anything, even if she knew. I gulped down the remainder of my drink and picked up the keys. I removed the one with Kozue's old room number on it, then shoved it into my pocket. It was entirely possible that nothing would happen even if I went there. However, I couldn't help but feel like there was something important in that room. I made sure to slide a flashlight into my back pocket before leaving the night duty room. I ran into Sanai near the spiral staircase in the lobby. "I was looking for you," said Sanai as she approached me. She told me she was just on her way to the night duty room after finding my room empty. "What's up? I'm not working today." "You told me you wanted me to recommend you some books." I glanced at the cover of the book she was holding. It had an illustration depicting a sci-fi cityscape with a semi-futuristic look. I remembered seeing Sanai read that book before. "I saw you reading that." "It's a mystery novel with lots of action elements. I think you'd enjoy it." The mystery itself is pretty good too," she added. "That sounds fun, but I'm a bit busy right now. I'll swing by your room to pick it up later, okay?" "Fine by me." Sanai nodded and returned to her room. I continued down the corridor in the opposite direction, slowing my steps so Sanai wouldn't see me stop in front of the locked room. I waited for her to turn a corner. I took a glance over my shoulder. Sanai was nowhere to be seen. I quickly surveyed the rest of my surroundings, making absolutely sure there wasn't anyone on the opposite end of the corridor either. I then took the key out of my pocket and stuck it into the lock. On second thought, I didn't necessarily have to hide this from Sanai. She wouldn't tell Mayuko about it if I asked her to keep it a secret. Besides, all she would have likely done was warn me to be careful. I doubted she would have tried to stop me. Still, I didn't want to force her to lie for me, so perhaps this was for the best. I turned the key with a click, and the lock opened. The handle no longer resisted me. I considered what I would do if I ended up being unable to return. I remembered promising Mayuko to tell her before going somewhere. But that was already after I entered the room and closed the door behind me. Oh, is this how she died? There was nothing but a bed and an empty shelf in the room. just like the day I went to look for that thing Kozue lost. The place even felt kind of nostalgic. Now that I thought about it, I never even learned what I was looking for in here. Oh no, was she looking for the penguin? Wait, that doesn't make any sense though. Wait, no, I'm so confused. The evening light filtered in through the window, preventing the room from being as dark as last time. I wondered if I should have opened the window, but since I didn't come here to clean or do anything of the sort, I figured I'd leave it alone for now. I walked to the center of the room and spun around. The place looked like a normal room. There were no caves or any other trippy imagery I witnessed last time. When I leaned against the shelf, my hand ended up covered in dust. I pulled my hand back, realizing I left a handprint. I considered sleeping on the bed, but that was probably a bad idea. After placing my hand back on the same spot, I closed my eyes. And with that, I remembered everything that happened here last time. A tiny sliver of light surrounded by a boundless darkness. When I moved closer to it, I saw Sachiko's back. She was sitting on a stone, facing away from me. When I tried speaking to her, she noticed my voice and slightly turned around. And that was where it ended. I replayed it in my mind countless times, so I was absolutely certain. When I opened my eyes, the room had been swallowed by darkness. Surprised, I took a step back, hitting the shelf behind me with my buttocks. The flashlight I brought with me slid out of my pocket and fell to the ground. I instantly turned to pick it up, but couldn't see anything in the blinding dark. This sudden turn of events left me a little dizzy. Realizing I wouldn't be able to rely on my eyes anymore, I turned to ascertain my surroundings using my other senses. The scents and sounds I detected told me I was back in that place. I tried grasping around for the flashlight, but I had no idea where it fell anymore. I could no longer even find that shelf I hit earlier. In fact, I didn't even hear the sound of the flashlight hitting the floor. Perhaps I left it on the other side. Surrounded by the hollow darkness, I let out a sigh. I swiftly calmed myself, focusing instead on what I was to do next. I came here to find Sachiko. I wanted to know what the present Sachiko, whom I still couldn't completely remember, was doing and where she was. I slowly took another look around. This definitely wasn't the best of situations, but for some reason I didn't panic. Oddly enough, this darkness felt more nostalgic than intimidating. The last time I was here, I was too surprised to be able to think straight. But now, I felt like my head was working even better than usual. Perhaps the thought I might find Sachiko here made it that way. Whenever I was by her side, I'd feel neither fear nor anxiety. I heard a gust of wind blow past me. It reminded me of the sound of fast-moving subway trains. Additionally, the cool and musty smell reminded me of the floor of my old apartment. When I was little, I used to dig deep down into the sandbox to find the driest and smoothest sand to use for topping on my sand pancakes. A few times, I managed to find sand that had turned light green. I still had no idea what it was supposed to be. Mold? In any case, I stored my greenish pancakes in an empty water tank I found in a warehouse. It was always dry and cool inside, so it was perfect for storage. The few times I left my pancakes under the stairs of my apartment, I found them cracked, looking as though a cat or dog had stepped on them. Those I stored in the tank, they probably survived until I moved. For some reason, I couldn't remember that clearly. I only remembered how I stored them in the tank. I checked to see if my limbs were still numb, then decided to move forward. Much like last time, the ground at my feet had a hard, rocky texture to it. Careful not to trip, I slowly continued forward. The distorted echoes of my footsteps reverberated across the darkness. I continued walking for a while, but hit no walls or any other barriers. This was definitely not the inside of that room anymore. I was back. But that is all the time that I have for this episode, guys. So, if you liked it, please give it a big thumbs up down below. And if you haven't already, subscribe. By subscribing, you're becoming part of a legacy. I love you guys so much, and I will see you in the next video. Bye-bye!